From the station working for you, this is Good Morning Indiana, streaming now.
Trust those that are putting their life on the line every day in the hospital, that if they're getting it, then I want to get it, and I think they should too.
Encouraging Hoosiers to get vaccinated when the time comes. Now at 4:30, we're talking to two medical students who are volunteering on the front line. Plus, leading by example, how Vice President Mike Pence and President-elect Joe Biden plan to show Americans that the vaccine is safe for all. And
at 3 a.m., I got the call that things had just turned like that, and she was not going to make it.
A Central Indiana man who lost his wife to COVID is sharing his story only with WRTV. His emotional plea to fellow Hoosiers as we continue to battle the pandemic. Thanks so much for starting your morning with us here on Good Morning Indiana on this Thursday. I'm Nicole Griffin in this morning for Lauren Casey, joined by meteorologist Todd Clausen. Todd, we're looking in better shape this morning. No rough drive in for me to the station this morning.
Yeah, you know, the snow has moved out. There's a few flurries out there, Nicole, but nothing that is going to impact your drive here this morning. And overall, it's a very quiet day of weather for us. I wish I could say it was quiet and bright, but that's not going to be the case today, as the clouds are definitely going to hold pretty firm throughout the entire day. As far as temperatures go, we're sitting at 27 right now in Peru, 29 in Indianapolis, 30 in Bloomington. Yesterday's high was 32 degrees. We've only dropped now down to 29, and that's because the clouds are in place. So our temperatures didn't fall off a lot throughout the overnight hours. The problem is they're just not really going to warm a whole lot throughout the day today with those same clouds in place. There's the view from IMS, and you can kind of see the city skyline there, but the low overcast skies are definitely in play. A few flurries out there as well this morning, but otherwise we are just dealing with cloudy skies. There's that big snowstorm that we've been talking about. That's the one that brought us the snow yesterday. It's now making its way through the northeast, but obviously not much of a player in our forecast. Just give yourself a little bit of extra time. The road's in decent shape, at least the main ones, but there could be a slick spot or two out there with the temperatures below freezing. And then there's your temperature trend, if you want to call it that, throughout the day. Not much happens as temperatures only climb, Nicole, up into the low 30s.
All right, Todd, thank you. We're keeping a close eye on traffic this morning. Here's a live look at I-65 at 30th Street, where you can see traffic is light here. No accidents or delays. I just drove in about an hour ago from Fishers. I didn't have any major problems on the interstates. Everything looked good. Just take it slow on those ramps, overpasses, and bridges, because you don't know, with the sun not being out yet, if there are any slick spots out there still this morning.
When you add in the more than 300 probable deaths based on the clinical diagnosis, we've lost more than 7,100 Hoosiers from this pandemic this year. That translates to 7,100 heartbroken families who need us all to buckle down and get through these next months.
This morning, the pandemic continues to take a toll on Hoosier lives. For the second day in a row, state health officials report more than 100 additional coronavirus deaths. 125 Hoosiers died with the virus between November 18th and December 15th. Since March, 6,781 Hoosiers have died with COVID-19. Health officials also report 320 probable COVID-19 deaths. State health officials also report more than 6,200 new positive COVID tests. That's an increase of nearly 2,000 cases from the previous day. To date, 440,850 Hoosiers have tested positive for COVID-19. Our 7-day positivity rate remains at 12.5%. And we continue to keep a close eye on hospital resources. As of this morning, 3,192 Hoosiers are hospitalized either with the coronavirus or a suspected case of COVID. Those patients are occupying about 40% of the state's ICU beds. 20% remain unused. The state also has just under 60% of ventilators available. Hundreds of Hoosiers training to be doctors and nurses are stepping up to help with vaccination efforts. We spoke with Sophia Joseph and Joey Lanekey. Both are second-year med students at IU. Both also have family members in the medical field. They tell us they have seen firsthand the toll the pandemic is taking on healthcare workers, and that's why they wanted to volunteer.
So my mom, she works in the hospital, and so she actually has been working in the COVID unit recently. I have a little brother. He's in elementary school, so he's actually been living at my grandparents' house just so we can avoid exposure of him to my mom.
My mother's a nurse, and she got COVID and was out. She's still kind of recovering with been sleeping all the time. My dad ended up in the ER actually for 3 or 4 days, and it kind of rocked our family a little bit. And I have other siblings that are nurses and stuff, so really it's kind of hit home. That's definitely why I want to be a part of today, and then here on out.
For those skeptical of getting the vaccine when it is made available to you, these 2 med students say you should follow the lead of these frontline workers.
Trust those that are putting their life on the line every day in the hospital, that if they're getting it, then I want to get it, and I think they should too.
I think that seeing healthcare workers getting the vaccine right now is proof that we should all join and get the vaccine if we have the opportunity to.
Meanwhile, Governor Eric Holcomb says he does not plan to get the vaccine early. He said he will get vaccinated at the same time as the general public to allow healthcare workers and those at high risk to get the doses they need. So far, 46,000 of Indiana's more than 400,000 eligible healthcare workers have registered to get their first dose of the vaccine. More than 55,000 doses of Pfizer's vaccine were allocated to the Hoosier State, but that number is a little less now. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Lindsay Weaver said we will not know how many vaccine doses are available until after Moderna's review process is complete. Dr. Weaver also said the state is working on a dashboard to track vaccinations that is expected to launch within the next few weeks.
My wife made more of an impact on society and others far more than I realized.
And as we told you earlier, 6,781 Hoosiers have died from COVID-19 since the pandemic began. We've been sharing numbers and data with you since the beginning of the pandemic, but those numbers aren't just numbers. They represent our friends, family members, co-workers, and our neighbors, including Audrey Beckley, who was married to former WRTV anchor and reporter Ken Beckley for nearly 56 years. This morning, Ken shares his story of grief and loss and his wife's last days with our Cornelius Hawker.
Well, we had so many plans. I mean, we hoped to stay here in this house for a lot of years. We wanted to do a lot of international travel. We look forward to the day that grandchildren married. We look forward to watching our great-grandchildren grow and to be around them. So we had so many plans.
Ken Beckley's plans with his wife Audrey were cut short in August when she died because of COVID-19.
We were following every health recommendation by national public health officials. Very, very careful about washing hands and sanitizing and distancing and always wearing masks.
In the days before she tested positive for the virus, Audrey started having trouble with her legs.
I heard a thud in our bedroom, and what had happened, she had gotten out of bed, took a step, but her legs really wouldn't move, and she fell against a chest of drawers, and I found her clinging to that.
Ken tells me he struggled to get her in bed and then called 911. That was on a Monday morning. Audrey was out of the hospital that afternoon. By Tuesday night, Audrey was fine, but he started experiencing typical COVID-19 symptoms.
I started chilling, had body aches, headache, and then that went away the next afternoon.
By Thursday, Audrey was in the hospital again. And on Sunday,
her lungs they really had gotten filled with a lot of pneumonia, but they just weren't producing their own oxygen.
In her last few days, Audrey was able to join Ken and their children for a rib dinner.
We have this wonderful picture of her with her ribs and baked potato and so forth.
And made sure her son enjoyed his birthday.
As all mothers are, despite how sick they are, she said, she texted and said, "Now be sure to fix such and such for Greg for his birthday." And this was on Monday, and later that afternoon, she sent a selfie, and her trying to smile with a little oxygen tube, running the side of her face.
Audrey told her husband doctors said they were pleased with her progress. They texted again about the dinner Audrey had eaten, and that was their last conversation.
At 3 a.m., I got the call that things had just turned like that, and she was not going to make it. But a wonderful nurse held Audrey's cell phone for me 3 times that day for me to talk to Audrey and to tell her everything that you would want to tell your spouse as he or she were dying. I also told her that I would be fine and the kids would be fine, and not to just hang on out of fear that we wouldn't be.
As Ken walked us through the home he shared with Audrey, showing us all sorts of memories, telling stories about their rich life that was cut short, I asked him to address those who aren't taking COVID-19 seriously.
The maskless of America have an opportunity to really help bring down this pandemic. Those that refuse to mask and follow the other health precautions, just the 3 primary ones, are among the most selfish people ever to have lived. This is a pandemic, for God's sake.
Well, if you have lost a loved one to COVID-19, we do want to hear their story. You can share it with us by emailing facesofcovid@WRTV.com. And we thank him so much for sharing that story with us. Todd.
All right, as we go throughout the day today, we're going to be dealing with lots of clouds, but not much in the way of any precipitation. That is the good news. Temperatures remain chilly today, but we do have a bit of a warm-up heading our way for the weekend. We'll break it all down for you coming up in your WRTV Storm Team forecast when Good Morning Indiana continues here in just a couple minutes.
Welcome back to Good Morning Indiana. The time now is 4:44. About 200 Indiana National Guard soldiers and airmen received the COVID vaccine Wednesday. The vaccinations were part of a separate shipment of vaccines allocated by the U.S. Department of Defense. They are not part of the vaccines the state is receiving for frontline civilian healthcare workers. The vaccinated guardsmen have been on the front line of the pandemic response missions, including at long-term care facilities, COVID testing sites, PPE distribution warehouses, and food banks. Indiana and New York are the first 2 National Guard states to pilot this Defense Department vaccine program. In Washington, Vice President Mike Pence is expected to get the coronavirus vaccine during a public event tomorrow. Second Lady Karen Pence and Surgeon General Jerome Adams will receive the vaccine as well. President-elect Joe Biden is set to get a COVID-19 vaccination early next week, also in a public setting. Meanwhile, a White House official says President Trump is still benefiting from the antibody cocktail he was given after contracting the virus in the fall and will not be getting vaccinated anytime soon. It is official. President-elect Joe Biden has chosen former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg as his pick for Transportation Secretary. The 38-year-old served 2 terms as mayor. He also served in the war in Afghanistan. Buttigieg started the year as one of the many Democrats seeking the presidency, but that dream didn't pan out for him. He dropped out of the race in March and endorsed Biden. During yesterday's event, Buttigieg acknowledged his nomination is historic.
I can remember watching the news, 17 years old in Indiana, seeing a story about an appointee of President Clinton named to be an ambassador, attacked and denied a vote in the Senate because he was gay. I watched that story and I learned something about some of the limits that exist in this country when it comes to who is allowed to belong. But just as important, I saw how those limits could be challenged. So 2 decades later, I can't help but think of a 17-year-old somewhere who might be watching us right now. Somebody who wonders whether and where they belong in the world, or even in their own family. And I'm thinking about the message that today's announcement is sending to them. So thank you, Mr. President-elect. Thank you for honoring your commitment to diversity. With this administration,
if confirmed, Buttigieg would be the first openly gay person confirmed by the Senate to a cabinet post. The nomination was applauded by union leaders, transportation officials, LGBTQ activists, and Democratic lawmakers as a solid pick.
I felt that.
There's an effort at the State House to improve representation and get more diverse talent involved in politics. Republican leaders in the state have rolled out a new diversity program to make sure their party and Indiana's elected leaders are truly representative of the people they serve. Whitley Yates, the Diversity and Engagement Director, says the goal of the leadership series is simple: to increase the engagement of Black and brown Hoosiers in the state's GOP party.
A lot of times in society, we are shamed for identifying with the Republican Party and conservative views. For some reason, it seems as though based upon the color of our skin, that our allegiance belongs in a different place. We should be at all tables and be palatable decision makers on all sides of the coin, right? There should be balance in everything.
The 6-month program involves monthly classes that cover topics including civic engagement, campaign management, communication, and state government. You can learn more about how to get involved by checking out this story on the WRTV app. We did reach out to Indiana's Democratic Party for a response. Lauren Ganapini, the party's executive director, had this to say: Indiana Democrats are inherently diverse because we have been diverse from day one. Constituencies are not just represented at the party's leadership table and across our party, but Democrats have also campaigned for and championed racial equity, LGBTQ acceptance, and women's equality, all areas where Indiana Republicans have consistently fallen short. You can find the full statement from her up right now on the WRTV News app. Now let's get another check of your Thursday forecast with meteorologist Todd Clausen. Hi, Todd.
Hey, good morning, Nicole. Happy Thursday, everybody. At home, we're dealing with quiet weather here this morning. Temperatures are still below freezing, so can't rule out the chance of maybe an isolated slick spot for you across parts of central Indiana this morning, especially once you get off the main roads and onto some of those side roads. So just be a little bit careful. But no precipitation is falling from the sky, despite the lack of view of the skyline. You can see it, but obviously there's some clouds out there and some moisture that's hanging around as well. The current temperature is 29 in Indy, but it feels like 21 when you factor in that wind that's out of the west at 8 miles per hour. So it's not a super strong wind, but it is enough to factor in some wind chills across the area. And everybody with the cloud cover in place has temperatures within a couple degrees of each other. So there's not a real big difference really across the area. 27 in Peru, 29 in Martinsville and Greenfield, 30 is the current temperature in Bloomington as well as the Bedford area. Here are those wind chill values. And again, some of these stations don't start reporting wind chills until about 6 o'clock, but you see the wind chills down to 22 in Muncie, and there's that 21 that we talked about in Indianapolis. With the clouds in place today, temperatures are just not going to warm a whole lot. We're going to just barely get back above freezing later on this afternoon to a high right around 33 degrees. So it's a chilly day for us. It's not going to have much of anything in the way of sunshine. So it's just one of those days that's going to even feel cooler than it will actually be out there. So just bundle up if you're going to be out and about throughout the day today. But you really don't have to worry about any precipitation. There could be a flurry or two, but that will be just about it. The clearing line is well off to our west, and it's just not going to make much progress here in the central Indiana as we go throughout the course of the day today. Don't be shocked again if you see a flurry this morning on your commute, but it will not cause any issues throughout the day today. And then as the winds start to change, there could be a few isolated snow showers coming in off of Lake Michigan in northern locations as we get into the afternoon hours. But otherwise, we should be in decent shape here throughout the day. Overnight tonight, it gets chilly down into the 20s for everybody across the area. And then for the day tomorrow, we do get the sunshine back, and look what that does to the temperatures. It helps us get back up into the 30s across the area. And then as we go forward into the weekend, 42 on Saturday, 40 on Sunday. Saturday, there could be a little bit of a light rain snow mixture depending when that precipitation comes in, but it does not look like a big event for us. That is the good news. And then temperatures stay in the 40s, in fact, mid to upper 40s as we get into next week with plenty of sunshine Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Nicole?
All right, Todd, thank you. Let's take a live look outside here at 452. This is a view of the North Split where roads are in good shape this morning. We do know that DPW crews are making it out into those residential areas this morning. So just be safe out there on those streets as they work to plow those and get those cleared for you. But the interstates so far this morning seem to be in good shape. Let us know if you're seeing any issues out there. Well, still ahead, the pandemic causing schools to switch back and forth from in-person to virtual learning. Next at 5 o'clock, our Kelsey Anderson talks with one local teacher about how they've adapted. It's 4:52. You're watching Good Morning Indiana. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to Good Morning Indiana. On this Thursday, we're getting off to a quiet but cold start across all of central Indiana. Temperatures are below freezing anywhere you go. So there could be an isolated slick spot out there, but as you see on radar in the center of your screen, we have no additional precipitation out there for the day today. That is the good news. Going forward, just clouds in place throughout the entire day. A few flurries are possible, but no accumulation, and that high only gets back up to 33 degrees, so bundle up. You're going to need the jacket, the hat, and gloves throughout much of this Thursday. Plenty more news headlines and traffic coming up for you when Raphael joins Nicole and I at the top of the hour. Stay with Good Morning Indiana. We're back in just a couple minutes.